Hey guys, it's your host Julian. This week I'm sitting down with Mike and JB from North To Wharf, the best fan site covering Bob's Burgers and everything from the Bento box universe. I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons that help support this podcast. Bill, Brent, Brittany, Eight-Legged Bird, Jacob, and Semantics. Thank you all so much for your support. It truly means a lot. If you want to become a member of our Patreon channel to help support this show and get all these episodes early and ad-free, follow the link below and sign up today. Now, let's get to that chat with Mike and JB. What better way to do it than with Bob's Burgers? So I got to know, first off, how do you two guys meet? And then after that, how do you guys find Bob's?
JB, I always tell this story, so
you do very well though. So Mike was running a podcast prior to ours called Let Us Catch Up, and as he says it was running its course and it was getting close. His co-hosts and things had found other things they were wanting to do, and he's like, I don't know if I'm gonna keep doing this. And he had interviewed me. We had kind of met online, I think, and I asked you if you wanted to like chat about, because I had worked on the Trivial Pursuit game, and I was like, did you want to like talk about it? And you're like, sure, why not? And then you had me on, and then afterwards, it was a couple of weeks, I think I messaged you and I was like, do you still want to do some podcast stuff? Like, do you want to like talk about Bob's? I love Bob's. Do you want to do this? And you're like, why not? Sure. And then it just kind of happened. I'm sure that's the boring version. Mike's versions always sound a little bit better than mine.
But yeah. So like JB was saying, I was doing Let Us Catch Up. That was a Bob's Burgers podcast. I had got burnt out from that because it quickly became a job and it wasn't fun anymore. So I had kind of stopped doing it. And then during the pandemic, this rando hits me up and says, "Hey, you interested? I know it kind of died, but are you interested in starting something up?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? I got nothing going on. I'm stuck inside the house." And then 3 years later, here we are on your podcast.
Yeah, it's funny how fast time goes. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I'm pushing 40 here in a couple months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I got one.
So
one.
I love so. Bob's is new in a sense to my audience as far as me talking about it. You know, I started this one. It was mainly just to talk Ninja Turtles. Found out really quickly that it was not going to go for very long. It dried up very quickly. I started this one during COVID, October of 2020.
Yep. You were
March. Oh, absolutely. You know, and it was something I wanted to do for quite some time just because I was always that kid that asked so many questions like why? Everybody's got a really cool story, right? You know, so it dovetailed into animation, and you know, I've been on and off Bob's when I was in the military because it's hard to keep up with anything in the military when you're consistently deployed for 3 years straight, damn near, you know, or 3 deployments over a 4.5, 5 year stretch. Very hard to keep up on anything topical, Mike. You know, obviously, you know what I mean. So I see Bob shortly after my first deployment. Fall in love with the first burger of the day, the child molester. I was like, this show has got balls, right? And it was it was the first show in a new age of animation that I've seen because I'd given up on animation at that point. And I see this show and I'm like, oh man, this makes me feel like King of the Hill. King of the Hill is so special to me, right? And I was like, I've got to keep watching this. So I would check in. And over the last couple years, I've rewatched the series maybe like 2 or 3 times now. And I started rewatching it with my family and ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the story, but my wife and my kid, they'll sit there and look at their phone and they might look up if I'm watching something. And I started to notice that they kept putting the phones down, looking up longer and longer and longer. And I'm like, oh shit, I think they might be onto something. And I can't remember the episode and I can't remember the joke, but I remember I got an audible chuckle from both of them. And I just happened to look over and they both have their phones closed, sitting on their lap, and they're laughing. I'm like, oh fuck, you guys are paying attention. And they go, well, yeah, this is funny. And I'm like, no shit, this is funny. I've been trying to tell you guys this, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, there's no better way to do it than to start over episode 1. And like I said, that's where I fell in love with the show. The child molester, the first burger of the day. This show's got balls. This show's got legs. That's how I found it, right? How do you guys find Bob's?
You want to take this one first or you want me to?
Oh, yeah, sure. Much the same. Like from episode 1, I remember watching it and it didn't really click for me right away. I was like, oh, I recognize these voices. Obviously, H. John, a huge fan of like Dr. Katz and home movies. So clearly it's like, oh, this is essentially the same universe. A lot of the same voices. Kristen Shaw, of course, I knew about. But much like you, like the child molester, then the autism joke, I was like, that's funny. There's no way around that. That's funny. And then again, the whole conversation of Gene, can he be molested or can he not be molested? Funny. It's arguably it's funny. And then from there I just checked it out, and with each like subsequent episode, I was like, oh no, this is for me. Yep, this just confirmed it. Yep, I'm on board. And then it just snowballed to where we are now.
Mhm. It's similar for me as well. I found it through a friend who was just like knew I loved home movies and would watch it constantly, especially when it was on Adult Swim, and just be like, this is a great fucking show. And then I was like, yeah, it's Dr. Katz's guy too. And I was like, oh, cool. So I started watching all of Dr. Katz and then all the voice work. And so I was like, I know these comedians. I love listening to Eugene. His comedy albums are amazing. And like knew about Kristen in the hot tub with Kurt. And I was like, these are great. These are awesome comedians, and they're all in just one spot. And then, as Mike said, like the jokes just hit. The writing was super good. It was super funny. It was just like, it just all clicked at once. And I was like, this is an amazing show. And then I was like, I hope other people find this, because by like season 2, it kind of got weird, where like they only did half a season. And I was like, are they not coming back? Is this like it? Is this like home movies where it just kind of ends and that's the end of it? And they came back with season 3, which a lot of people argue like 3, 4, and 5 are like some of the best seasons of Bob's Burgers, and it's just so good. It hasn't stopped since.
No, it really hasn't. And I mean, it's one of those things that I look at, and it's like everything pluses the next, right? The writing ups the art ups the voice ups every. I mean, it's just I've never. That's not true. I've seen a couple shows that I could just say that are perfect from start to finish, right? You know, when you watch Bob's from season 1 to season 15, you know, movie in between that, there's not one episode that I would take out at all. There's not one episode that I don't laugh in. There's not one episode. How dare you, Mike? I see your snake there. But for me, I'm
Yeah, yeah.
both the best and worst fan of animation, because I don't need to have. I could have plot holes, no problem. I could have weak writing for a specific point in time, no problem. If I get a chuckle, if I get a laugh, if I find any kind of enjoyment, I'm happy. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You could
Mhm.
throw, oh, what about this, that, and the other? I'm like, I don't give a fuck, dude. I laughed. Mainly, that's the weed, boys. You know, that helps me lower all standards for everything.
Okay, then
But
that explains your earlier comment then.
yeah, you know what I mean? But I've thoroughly enjoyed every episode I've ever seen, because it's one of those things that's like a security blanket, right? So that's
Yeah.
what Samurai Jack is. That's what King of the Hill was. That's what Hey Arnold was. Regular show is, and that's what Bob's is, man.
Mhm.
You know, if I had a Mount Rushmore plus an honorable mention, I mean, fucking, I'm putting all 5 of these up. There's no honorable mention. All 5 of these are on my Mount Rushmore of cartoons. You know, but Bob's is just one of those ones that I get to share with my family, because I can't really talk my family into watching Samurai Jack. I tried with my oldest son.
Yeah,
He's balls deep
they're
into
missing out.
anime.
Maybe
Ah,
Primal. Maybe
Boy,
you
oh
get
boy, aren't they?
Primal could be good.
I've tried Primal. I love Primal,
Seriously,
man.
it's so good.
Well, it's the thing. It's like, right, so it's the phone. If you're looking down, you can't watch Primal, because there's not one single word uttered until the last 30 seconds of that
Yep.
last episode of season 1, when he says Mira. I believe he said Mira, was the
Mhm.
last word he said, you know, and it's just like with something like that, it's the same thing with Jack. Like, I was on the edge of my seat watching Jack, because you have to pay attention to the animation,
Yep.
you know, but that's neither here nor there, man. So with your disdain for my comment there a second ago, Michael, man, what season would you cut if you had to?
oh, well, fuck me running. Okay, if I had to cut a whole season, that's rough, because there are shining stars in each and every season, but I'm of the mindset that you're not a real fan unless you can admit there are some weak links in the chain.
No?
Um, y-
That's
for-
he's been. This is the hill that Mike has been on, because
Yeah.
I'm in the mindset that sometimes like a B plot could get swapped, or I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, this A and B plot was super strong together. Like you could have split these into 2 episodes, and I would love to see both play out longer. That's usually like my bigger concerns. And sometimes I'm just like, this just one just didn't hit as well as others. But I always
What-
say, watch it later though, and it may age differently. Because sometimes you just have to be at this right point in your life where you're like, oh,
Look
this
at him.
thing's now. Oh, I know.
Look at him.
JB, I'm older than you, and that's that young nonsense that you keep talking.
I know.
I'm older, I've aged, I'm wiser, and I'm here to
You
tell
and your
you,
goddamn optimism.
I'm here to tell you, yeah, knock
The
it
class
off.
that full guy doesn't win. The half usually takes the crown.
I'm here to tell you there are some weak episodes, and whether that's because of the writing or whatever the case may be, there are just some episodes that I was like, I saw once and we're golden showers. I'm past this one. But I would say I could count that on one hand, episodes that I would just completely axe. But yeah, if we're talking like a whole season's worth,
That's hard.
probably I would say the season leading up to and the season coming out of the movie were noticeably not weaker, but like not, I felt not on par with the others. Because at that point, they had the writers who were kind of stretched thin doing the movie, and then they brought in people to do
The animation and stuff,
the
yeah.
animation, the episodes. So things were stretched a little thin there, and I felt it suffered a bit, but those weren't bad episodes per se. But if we're stacking them against other Bobs, then yeah, then if that's the level we're trying to get it to, then yeah, they're not all the bleakening.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say.
Well,
Yes.
the Bleakening definitely isn't a tier of its own, but I liken, so I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm likening it to, were you guys fans of The Simpsons?
Of course.
So, what does almost every Simpsons fan say? The first 10 are
10
like the
seasons of the best.
greatest,
Yeah.
right?
Five,
You know what I
five,
mean?
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And I had this guy on. I had a couple guys on that were Simpsons like OGs, from not so much from the beginning, but they were on those earlier years. And one guy I had on in particular that if you guys have not checked this out, ladies and gentlemen, they're watching. Brad Abelson was such a fun hang. He's a fun dude. I got to bro it up with him. We just sat here and talked shit like we were in a fraternity, man. It was just a lot of
Mm.
fun. But he said, he broke it down, and I was like, why does everybody seem like those 10 seasons of the best and everything else kind of meh? And he's two things I've heard people say. And Brad was saying, well, if you think about it, people started there from season one, episode one, they went 10 years. Who doesn't change in 10 years? What do most people
Yep.
do when they're young, right? They're young.
Hmm.
They don't have any spouse or any kids or anything like that. And by the end of the 10
Hmm.
years, you got a kid, you got a wife, you're looking at things differently. You got a 401k, you got a mortgage, you got to
Mhm.
pay for, you got a car note and all this other shit. And he's like, people start aging out of what they were doing. They're no longer doing that college shit. They're no longer doing that humor. And when you were talking about that with Bob's, and I draw that correlation, it was just, I wonder if any of the COVID stuff had stuff to do with that, because that was a big portion of those guys were remote at that point. They're
Yep.
not in the office anymore. They're not writing. They're not throwing notes, and they're not, writing and drawing these little things. You're not
Yeah,
collectively together, so you can't one up and plus up.
yeah,
So is
yeah.
it that more so that you were looking at that era, that 2020 coming out of the movie prior to the movie?
I personally, I don't think so. I don't know if that had anything. It potentially, because like you said, it was COVID. Everybody was kind of spread thin and spread apart from each other. Um, I don't know. I just felt like maybe they um put more time into the movie, and that the
Hmm.
show, in some aspects, might have suffered because of it.
Yeah.
Um, Now that's not to say like the more emotionally heavier episodes, like oh those suck. No, those are amazing. I love those.
We get a
Um,
lot of that on our show where people are like, oh, the old stuff, kind of like Simpsons, like you're saying. They're like the Simpsons' best seasons are top first 10. Well, Bob's like sucks after like season 7. We're like, no, guys, like the
No.
writing changed. They
Yeah.
got older. We got older. Like I have a kid now, so like certain episodes with like Gene, I'm like, oh, I get that now. Like that makes more sense to me. Or like when there's heartfelt moments between Tina and Bob, or like Linda and like Louise, you're like, these writers are probably
Growth.
dealing with this in their own life. It's
It's
growth.
growth.
and that's
Thinking with the actors.
exactly how Brian Husky put it. He
Mhm.
because we asked him, he was like, a lot of folks are mad because Louise is evolving, she's becoming more of an emotional being, and we were like, why is that? Why everything post movie is that? And he's like, it's because the writers have grown up. They have kids. They have more life experience to pull from. Not
Mhm.
everything is how many toothpicks are on the floor.
Hmm.
They have real life experience to pull from. And for what it's worth, I don't like episodes from earlier in the run. So like season 3, there's like a couple episodes we can completely access. This was long before COVID. A bad episode's a bad episode.
Well, I will say, like, I do see, and what I love about Bob's, more so, not more so than the show, because I absolutely love the show, but what I love in conjunction with the
Mhm.
show is the fan base.
Yeah.
I've released a lot of episodes that are varying across Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Disney, and one thing I've noticed is there's specific fan bases. I won't bring them up because it's almost like Candyman and Voldemort. You say his name, they pop up, right?
Yep.
Shittiest, some of the shittiest fan bases I've ever been had the displeasure of communicating with. But Bob's, for the most part, has all been very positive. I met like maybe one or two people that I'm like, I really wouldn't talk to that guy again, but not to the level of some of the other shows that I've covered, man. And looking at these episodes, I love the growth. I love when people talk about the growth of these characters, and I see maybe it's just me being a dad and looking at it like, I got three kids, right? So I can
Mhm.
see
Yeah.
different personalities within each of these kids that my own kids have, and you start seeing those early seeds of growth for all the characters. And Luis has always been my favorite character. I
Yeah.
love the chaotic evil that she is. I mean, I don't think there's a better character in that show than her. I mean, most people argue it'll be somebody else, Jean, Eugene, Tina, whoever, right? But you see the growth, and you guys might be able to point to the episode. I can never remember which one it is, but there is a scene at the end of the episode where Luis and Bob are standing next to each other, and Bob's grilling, and the topic essentially comes up of Luis one day possibly wanting to take
Yeah.
over, and then
Yeah.
he goes, "Oh, you don't want to." He's like, "No, this place sucks. Why would I want to do burgers?" That's where I notice. That's where growth.
Mhm.
That's where the seed of growth
Yeah.
is starting, and then you
Mhm.
see it somewhat in the Hurt Soccer, right? That
Mhm.
that episode where she's like, "Fuck, man, why am I feeling bad that these people they want to win? Like, why? Fuck, we can't go home. We have to stay here. We have to at least try." So
Mhm.
you saw that
Mhm.
way earlier. Maybe it's not as peppered in as much as it is now,
Mhm.
but I wholeheartedly agree, man. These
Yeah.
writers that are on there from day one that are growing with the show, they're figuring out these characters. If anybody knows these characters, it's the people that are writing them and creating these
Mhm.
everyday occurrences that these characters have, man.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, man, what was you guys' emotional and not emotional, that's douchey. What was you guys' personal attachment to the show? Was it a specific character that kind of got you on? Was it the humor? Was it the writing? What was it for you guys?
For me, it was a little bit of all of it.
Mhm.
The comedians got me hooked because I knew H. John from home movies. John Roberts had seen the shorts and was like, "These are great." But he's literally just playing his mom. Eugene, Kristen, and Dan Mintz had all seen them on other things, and I was like, "Okay,
Mhm.
this will be great." And then Larry Murphy, I knew from like Ashawn Benjamin Has a Car and like all those other Adult Swim shows, and I was like, "Okay, they're all together, so this will be awesome." The writing was funny. It was edgy in the first couple seasons. It definitely was trying to pull people, I think, away from like Family Guy and be like, "Hey, we're kind of
Mhm.
like that, but we're not," because they did the whole like jokes and tried to make fun of it, and it worked. And I was like, the family's actually nicer. It's not like let's just fuck around and beat up on Meg all day and like no chicken fights. And I was like, they actually have a story and a moral, and like they're funny. And
Mhm.
I think once they introduced Mr. Fishoeder too, I was like, I love this. He's one of my
Yeah.
favorite side characters. I was like, once he was in there, I'm like, this is gold.
Mhm.
And from that point on, it was just like I was sold. And then as it evolved, I'm like, it's still really good. There's always good jokes, good episodes. Gene's still, I know people just beat up on Gene, but Gene's got some amazing one liners all the time that are just kind of
Mhm.
hidden. And you got to really listen or you're going to miss them. Like in the movie, when he's singing the song and Tina's like, there's something in his pants, and Gene's like, poop. And just like walks by. Like he just says it. And like, if you're not listening to the song, you're going to miss it, but it's so good and it still does that stuff. It always hides something in there. It's always layered.
Yeah. As far as like an emotional attachment, your words, not mine. It's like
Threw me
once you
under the
get
bus
past,
there.
He's a
yeah,
Marine. He can't stop.
once you get past like the low hanging fruit of like, oh yeah, the jokes are funny, the animation's cool, X, Y, and Z. You realize that it's a show about a family that loves each other,
Yeah.
a family that has their squabbles, but at the end of the day, they love each other. There's nobody's like JB said, nobody's the butt of the joke. The family goes to bat for each other, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a breath of fresh air in a world where like Family Guy was like JB said, shitting on
Forever.
Meg the whole time. The Simpsons kind of have the same vibe, but Bob shows a family that isn't afraid to love each other. And I
Mhm.
was like, that's
Mhm.
a good change of pace, and
And
so that's the emotional hook that got me at least.
I'm trying to think who said it too. One of the voice actors or one of the people we've had on in the past said like it's a family that loves each other, and at the same time he's also like everyone accepts each other.
Mhm.
There's no
Yeah.
questioning. Like Marshmallow just walks in and I was like, "Hey Marshmallow." There is no questioning. It's just like that's who they are. It's Marshmallow.
Yeah.
I like Marshmallow. It's done. It's not this like nitpicking and picking it apart. Like Family Guy is notorious for that kind of stuff, and other shows kind of get lost in that. And it's just like it's not funny after a while. You're just like, okay, this is a joke we're gonna play out again. We're gonna do this again. Okay, let's do this again. Let's get it over with and let's move on. Bob's doesn't do that, and I think a lot of people like just like that. Like I have to deal with this in my life every day. At least at Bob's, I don't have to. It's
Yeah,
just a
it's a nice
sport and it's
break.
fun. It's a break, and I think that's when you said like it's an emotional break for people. People love it because they fall asleep to it. They're like it's a comfort
Yes.
show.
Dude, it's crazy because at my work there's a buddy and he had heard me talking about Bob's, and we talked movies, we talked cartoons. I mean, Mike, you
Mhm.
probably can back this one up. I mean, when you're in the military, the first thing you ask somebody when you're deployed, hey man, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite song? Like, so you find personal connections,
Something
right?
to talk
It's the
about,
same.
yeah.
Yeah, just so you can have some, like, because everybody comes from someplace different. I mean, I was the only guy from Florida when I was in boot camp in my area, right? So it was
Hmm.
like Texas and Hawaii, and so trying to find similarities with somebody from like where you're at is like that's not going to happen. So movies,
Hmm.
that'll do it. Books,
Yeah,
that'll
yeah.
do it. And I was talking to one person about Bob's. I was trying to get them on the fence of like trying it out. And I fucked up because right, so I told her I was like, hey, you and your boyfriend should for sure check out Bob's. And she's like, I don't know if it's my humor. I was like, all right, I'm gonna sell you on this one. My favorite episode of all time is Ear Riders, right? That in my
Mhm.
mind, that's like the perfect Louise episode, right? And I was like, you're gonna get hooked on this one right away. She comes back, and then I was like, what'd you think? And she was like, ah. And then I started thinking about it, right, for a couple weeks, and I'm like, dude, I should have started with the pilot. I was like, you get everything you need to know about the characters right there. Plus, it's one of the
Yeah.
strongest pilots of all time. I was like, I
Mhm.
threw you in the deep end expecting you know how to swim, and I didn't ask you if you could swim by giving you that episode, right? So you just
Yeah.
see this wild character that loses her hat, and then you're like, all right, why the fuck is she so crazy, right?
Yeah.
Should have took it back to the episode, right? But I was talking about that with somebody, and I found out that like six people at work that we've never talked about, like talked, more than just passing hello, how are you, or goodbye, have a great weekend type of thing. They all love Bob's too. And then now we collectively talk and we talk about the episodes or what they liked, what they didn't like, the characters. And now I've got a stronger bond with those people that I never had any kind of bond with just because of the show. It's fucking
Mhm.
wild what the show can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it totally is. Like, here's my lanyard from work. It's
Hmm.
Bob's. And the amount of comments I get from people at work, like, oh, do you watch Bob's? What's your favorite character? Who do you like to watch? It's like this weird thing. And it's so small,
Yes.
like, you'd have to read it. And like, they see the font, they're like, Bob's?
Hmm.
Oh, one of us. And then immediately they're just like, let's talk.
One of us. One
One
of
Hmm.
of
us.
literally, it's just nuts. I have a Coochie Kopi pin that my buddy gave me. It's on my like winter hat. People will be like, "Oh, Bob's." It's just like
Hmm.
it's like this small. It's so tiny, but they see it and they're like, "Oh, you're a Bob's person. What's your favorite episode? Do you like Gene or do you like Tina better?" And it's like, "Oh, we're gonna talk about it. Okay, let's do this." So it's just a weird like family that's like, and everybody's just kind of part of it. Everyone's kind of like just an extended Teddy at this point.
That's
Yeah.
such a great way to look at it.
I think the wildest example, because unfortunately at my work nobody gives a shit about Bob's Burgers, which is fine because I
It's
don't
You
want
because
to
should
they're
probably
talk to
quit.
anybody.
You
old.
should probably
I
quit.
wish I could. I wish I could, but insurance is too good. But the wildest example would be like going to Comic Con. Now you expect like, oh, there obviously there's gonna be Bob's fans there, and
Yeah.
we're lucky enough to co-host the fan meetup with Teen Apocalypse, and we were like, oh, maybe 20 people, maybe 30 people. We had like 150, almost 200 folks show up.
It was
Dude, that's
nuts.
so dope.
We ran out
Folks,
of room. We had to move
folks,
it somewhere else.
like folks that weren't even going to Comic Con. Like we hold the meetup outside of the con, so you don't need tickets to come in. If you're in San Diego, you can come for free. And we do it specifically for that reason, so anybody can come. And fucking like 200 people show up, and we're like, oh shit, we're out of stuff. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, we didn't bring enough stickers. We didn't bring enough buttons. We were
But
expecting like we asked her how many did she have last year, and she's like, I mean, it gets progressively bigger. She's like, we had like maybe 80 last year, so we were like 100.
Hmm.
But it was like I think the year the movie came out or the year after the movie came out, and it was like 225, and we're like, yeah, we don't have enough stuff at all. We felt so unprepared. The group photo was massive, and we're just like, and it's just crazy because you'll like all the Tinas will get in a picture together, all the Jeans, all the Belcher families will get in together, and then people will be like, "Where'd you guys come from?" And how many people take the train from like LA or from other parts of California just to come to this meetup and go home?
yeah,
Is just crazy. It's so cool that that's like the connectivity the show can create with just fans, but it's just crazy to see because we just never I guess experienced it in like real time.
yeah.
No, man, I like I said, this fan base is one of the keep it kind, by the way, Bob's
Mm.
fan base. Keep you guys are absolutely awesome, man. Um, with
There
that
is
being,
a small section though.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not even gonna get into it. Not even gonna get into it.
But
Yeah.
they exist. It's
Eggs.
it's like we're not watching the same show. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, you know, and for every 10 people, you're always going to have one douche. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just people like what they like, they don't like what they don't like. Different strokes for different folks, you know. I made the mistake when I first started this podcast. Maybe you guys had made the same mistake, but you know, whenever especially earlier on, I would say like, "Oh man, that thing sucks. Fuck this." You know what I mean? It's just now I've kind of evolved to like, it's just made for somebody else. It's not me because
Yeah.
Yeah.
the one thing I realized more so than just like people getting angry and you know sending me shitty messages, it was more of like I'd never want people to like take my opinion as the gospel. You know what I mean? And then they
Mhm.
not check out something because when I was younger, you know, it was either Biggie or Tupac. Until I
Yeah.
got older, I didn't realize like, I can like Ready to Die and I can like All Eyes on Me. What the fuck is this? I can like hip hop and Nirvana. What is
Yeah.
going on, right?
Do
So,
both.
you know, when you're younger, you don't realize that. And the last thing I want to do is be like the reason somebody doesn't check something out. Because if
Mhm.
I listened to everything everybody said about half the shows I watch now, I would have never watched them. And
Yeah.
some of these shows that people say suck, I'm like, what the fuck are you? Like you had said just a second ago, what the fuck you watching? We watching a different show right now? What are you watching? You know, so
Mhm.
that's why it kind of evolved
Mhm.
into like, man, it's just made for somebody else. It's just not for me. What do you think about it? We could talk about that offline. I don't want to talk about it on here and sway
Yeah.
anybody's opinion.
And
I
I think for the fans, really quick, like Lauren said it from like very get go that like without them,
uh-oh.
I think he froze.
Uh-oh.
Let's pretend
Why?
freeze.
for like merch people, everybody, they all say the same thing. They're like, we do everything for the fans. And like we got lucky enough to get invited to the movie premiere because they were inviting like super fans and people like, and we just happened to know Todd and that helped out. But the amount, like they literally half that theater for opening night to watch this movie is fans. Just people in cosplay costumes, walking the red carpet, taking pictures, talking to people. Like it was just like a huge fan meetup. And it was just crazy. And he's just like comes out and introduces the movie and he's just like, it's for you guys. That's why we did this. And we hope you love it and enjoy it. And that's why you guys are here. And he's like, because you deserve to be here. We don't need execs and people to show up. They're not going to care. He's like, you guys care. And it was just like he does it at every con too. He shows up and autographs and talks to fans. Like everyone in the show is just like gives you the time of day because they're like, you're the fans. You're the reason we get to do this job. It's just so cool to see because some people, other shows, are like they don't even want to talk to you. They just walk
Oh
away.
boy, don't I know.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite shows of all time, they're like, nah, I'm good.
But to go back to what you were saying, yeah, I credit to JB because he plays middle of the road so well. I mean, he likes what he likes, but if he doesn't, it's middle of the road for him. I don't have that kind of. I wear my emotions on my face. If I don't like something, you're gonna know.
You will.
But the way I've matured in my old age, especially doing this show, speaking to the writers and animators, like I now realize what it takes to get a show to air, let alone into 15 seasons of a show and how long an episode takes to get made. So I respect that side of it. So if I think something's not up to par, I'll say, it ain't for me, just like you. I was like, it ain't for me. And I'm not speaking to the process of it because I know how hard it is. I know how hard everybody works, but this particular episode just wasn't for me. Whereas Housebroken, for example, we reviewed the first episode and I think I rated it 2 dogs down. And then
Damn.
like that was the last time we kind of talked about that show because we both weren't fans, but JB was a little more hesitant to say, I didn't like this. And I was like, no.
Yeah, I try to give it a little bit of time. And like I always will throw out like I kind of wish it would be more like this, or they would try this, or make it more like Dr. Castle with pets. That'd be fun. And just maybe cut down some of the amount of pets that you're having on an episode. It's just too many. Like 10 different therapy sessions is too much. Maybe 2 is fine. An A and a B, maybe a small C plot. But they just never did it. It just became so much and too much. And the voice acting cast is awesome, but it's just no one could get hurt through that. It was just too many people on screen at once.
It's just it's not made for me. It's made for somebody else.
Yeah.
I hope that person finds it.
Yeah.
Go with God. And much like yourself, I don't want to be the
Enjoy it.
reason nobody checks or somebody doesn't check something out because they may absolutely dig it. So I'll preface it by saying, hey, it wasn't for me, but what the fuck do I know?
Yeah. I love using that at work too, by the way. You know, you just go off on rambles. Like, ah, what the fuck do I know, right?
Yeah, who I'm not your boss.
I'm not in charge.
So, with that being said, man, you guys gave me 3 episodes, but I think the 2 episodes that we have to talk about while you guys are here, I haven't seen these probably in close to a year. So rewatching this, I forgot, just how brilliant ladies and gentlemen, Bleakening. I don't want to keep you, on too long, but the
Mhm.
Bleakening part one and part two, these, I forgot just how great everything was top notch for these two
Yep.
episodes. From the writing, the animation was stunning, especially once they hit the rave.
Oh
I'm a
God,
Yes.
yeah, it's
I'm a
beautiful.
huge color fan. I love color. So all the shadows going blue and green and red and orange
Hmm.
and purple and all that shit, just the light up. I mean, everything about this one was so fun. Why did you guys pick the Bleakening part one and part two?
I don't know, where do you start? It's literally the perfect Bob's Burgers episode and the best Bob's Burgers Christmas episode.
Mhm.
Um, Adam Driver absolutely nailed it as art.
Yep.
Um, Everybody's singing, and it has probably my favorite line from the entire series. I think it's in episode 2 when we find out that Art stole the tree, and he looks out into the crowd, and Marshmallow sees them, and she says, "And to think I sold you drugs," as if she's disappointed in him.
Yep.
And I still say that to this day. Nobody gets it, but I still say, "To think I sold you drugs." Um, yeah, the songs in it are top notch.
Yeah. Twinkly
Teddy in
Lights is so good.
Yeah, Teddy in the inflatable suit is hilarious when he sees Miss
The dog
Chang's
takes
dog
the
shitting
shit.
and thing.
Jesus
Yeah,
Yeah.
Christ.
and he
Like cute
he's
little
like,
Miss Chang. Never would have thought.
never
He's
would
like,
have
oh,
thought.
Don't
it's getting
throw
in
up
the
in
suit.
Santa. Don't throw up in Santa.
Yeah.
I had just seen a video of a dude in a Santa suit a guy comes up on him on a sidewalk and he farts into the suit and the next clip is the guy in the Santa suit. Yeah, he's doing that trying not to puke.
Get out, and he can't get out.
Yeah, and like JB was saying, like this person has their own issues, but like Todrick Hall nailed it on Twinkly Lights. I think it's an
Mhm.
amazing song, probably one of the best in the series as well, at least for me. But I mean, if I had to die on a hill and say like which episodes does somebody have to watch, Bleakening 1 and 2 are definitely in my top 5.
Mhm. Definitely. Like this episode just has so much to offer. And when you brought up the rave scene, like I almost feel like that was a test for the movie. Like, could we do something like this? Because it's so colorful. There's so many details, so many inflatables, so much going on in the backgrounds that it's just like this is a marvel. Because knowing what they do for animate, like how to track all that and make sure everything goes the way it's supposed to, and they don't collide and like animations get weird. It's like that was a process. And I'm sure Bernard and all those guys and Simon and all them sat there and plotted all that out to make sure that it worked. It's just incredible the amount of
Al-
stuff that went into that.
Also, shout out to our buddy Robert Download Jr., who did all the rave tracks for that episode.
Yeah, he did.
That's such a dope name.
It is.
Elevate. DJ Elevate. Let me guess, there's an 8 in it. Thanks, Louise.
That the so we'll jump around just a little bit and we'll talk about what we liked the most about this one. The rave scene obviously was almost everybody's favorite part. Like I said, the colors were beautiful, but I feel like these were some of the best one-liners in there too. The one that I think about all the time was, I think it was in part one. They're walking to the warehouse and Gene is out of cookies and he's like, "Oh no, we're gonna have to go back home because I'm almost out of my walking cookies." I've never I've heard, you guys remember that movie? Oh, was it That's My Boy with Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes.
So he's got the pocket chicken nuggets, dude. That was the
Mhm.
closest thing I had or have heard to a pocket chicken nugget where I'm like, fuck, dude, why don't I have walking cookies built into my everyday isms? You know what I mean? So
Uh,
I loved that line. What about you? Does any one line in here other than, I know you said the one with with Marshmallow, but does
to
there
think I
another
sold
line
you
that might pop out?
drugs. Shit.
There's one where like what was it? Who says it? The one where they finally catch Gretchen or sorry, Edith and Harold. I find it hysterical when like Linda grills them and she's like, "We didn't think anyone would care. We're just poor
Oh,
and
the
old."
cookies.
And it's just they just took the cookies and it's like that Harold's actually like they're really worried about Linda. Like she's that intimidating that they're like, "We're so sorry." And it's like you broke them. You broke the old folks.
I
take your
think
plate too, so they didn't have to wash it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think if I had to pick a small little segment, and I can't, I'm gonna butcher the line, but it's when Linda confronts Art when he's nude modeling, and the class is kind of singing harmony,
Oh
um,
no, that's good.
doing the back and forth. But then you have the pervert guy who's just there because he
Yep.
wanted to see boobs, but it turns out he can actually draw. And I'm
I
like,
Mhm.
really
oh
like drawing.
yeah, I really like drawing. I was like, oh, the little
But it's the
pervert
story
guy.
behind that that's so good because then they're like, he's really good at drawing, but he's still
Yeah.
kind of weird. It's just like they just go with it.
There was another Gene line right at the end. Oh fuck, he was talking about her butt because Louis said something about Bob's butt, the crack being out and something along those lines. Fuck, this is gonna bother me because I audibly chuckled and I almost choked on my tea when I was drinking it. I wasn't expecting it. Usually Gene is the guy that will get me laughing a little bit harder than most of them, just because like what you said earlier, JB. It's like if you're not listening and waiting for it, you'll just completely go
Mhm.
over that line. You won't catch it. And you're like, man, he didn't really have anything going on. You go back and listen, you're like, oh no, he had like 4 or 5 zingers that I just completely spaced out on.
Yep.
Hmm.
And, he's talking about Linda's butt, and then Louis talking about Bob's butt, obviously. But when you said best Christmas episode out of the series so far, what sets this one apart?
It's the scope of it all. It's
Mhm.
big.
Yeah.
It's like obviously you
Uh-huh.
got Christmas in a car, they're out in the world, a lot of things are happening, but this feels big. The rave scene
This is a
feels big.
two-parter. I mean,
It's a
that
two-parter.
alone,
Just the
Was this the
animation and like
first two-parter they did?
the Warfening one, this is the first,
warfening.
I think, holiday two-parter they
Okay.
did.
Yeah. But just like you see more of the city, the scope just feels big. We have those large panning shots of like overhead while the kids are walking and Bob and Linda are driving. You feel the tension before the kids get to the rave. Like they're nervous. Are they going to run into the bleakening? Is the bleakening real?
Mhm.
So they're kind of scared, and you feel that tension, and then you're like, oh no, it's not. Um, it's just more of everything that I loved, and on a bigger scale.
Mhm.
Like the
And
songs hit harder. Um,
Mhm.
it's kind of a musical, more so than any
Yeah,
Bob's episode. But yeah, for me, it just fires on all cylinders.
did you guys get any Charlie Brown Christmas Carol vibes? Or
a
yeah,
little bit.
just because the snow coming down, that's how it kind of
Hmm.
starts, and that's how the Christmas Brown or the Charlie Brown Christmas
Hmm.
starts. So it was that vibe, and then a lot of, like you said, a lot of the songs, a lot of the singing, a lot of the musical aspects. So that was the first thing that kind of drove me in, was just that there's something about snow. Maybe it's just because I'm from Florida and I don't see snow very often,
You know,
but it's just the snow in that episode. It kind of like just entices you in,
Yep.
and then you see how big yet how quaint that city is, especially when there's nobody out there.
mm,
Bosco has a great line at the end of this, is when Bob's dressed up as the bleak,
The Bleak
and
Runner.
he's running. Yeah, he goes, all right, well, let's hit him with the door. This will be fun. And
Yep.
him interrogating the kids, and then him dipping his fingers in the water and then flicking it at him. He's like, it does not exist. I don't know. I don't know
Mhm.
if you guys have ever had somebody do that to you, but I had that happen to me
Make
as a
your mom
kid.
more ornaments.
Yeah.
They
I
got
had
hands, they work. Make more ornaments for your mom, kid. Like it's just so dismissive. Like you're wasting my time. Get out of my face.
I had an aunt that would do that shit to you. If you're just sitting at the table and you just say some shit, she would dip her fingers, water tea, whatever it might be, and just flick it in your face. So that one was like a little personal towards me. I was like,
mm.
ooh, I would like to hit that one person one time. But in the
Yeah.
scope of everything, Bosco coming, I think he's like the perfect character to do that with.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It was just such a fun, like you said, from start to finish. I wouldn't say it's the best. It's not my favorite Christmas episode. Christmas in the Car is by far mine, but this one is like very, very close when it comes to scope. When it comes to how big it was, it seemed like they had all the money for that
Hmm.
season. They just threw at these two parters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And for me, it's one of the few episodes that, regardless of whatever time of the year I'm watching it, it makes me feel Christmas.
Yep.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like, oh, it's Christmas time. Oh no, shit, it's April. But no, it
Mhm.
makes me feel Christmas.
And it goes
I
back
just
to
want
the
to
Charlie
feel.
Brown
Yeah.
too.
Oh.
Yeah. And the Charlie Brown piece totally makes sense. Like Linda's lost her Christmas tree. And it's this
Mhm.
tiny little tree that's the top of the tree. But like it's a whole thing. And like that the family's willing to go look for it because she's just so destroyed about it. It's kind of like at the end of the whole Christmas movie, like they do the hand whirl and Charlie Brown's tree gets fixed and like just needed some love. It's just like Linda's just trying to spread some cheer when everyone seems kind of down.
I love when they take a shot at her too, when she's like, "Oh yeah, my Christmas party was." She's like, "No, it was not as good as this. This one was way better." It's like, no, people had fun. No, they
No,
didn't.
it didn't. It didn't. Who told you that?
Oh, the
Fucking liar.
eggnog too. They try and they're like,
Oh,
that's awful. Like
yes.
it's like toothpaste. It's good, isn't it?
Never good.
So obviously we talked the rave, but is there any one scene in particular that sticks out to you guys as being like, "Oh my God, mwah, chef's kiss, this is perfect"?
Uh, the party is fun. I do enjoy like Linda's Christmas party, like where Moore's just like, let me guess, it's a cold slider.
Oh,
And like
dude.
that's good.
Oh,
And Teddy's
hot,
like,
hot, hot.
yeah, he's like, how many can I have, Bobby? You tell me a number here. And he's like that's enough. He's like, oh, 4. Okay, now we know. It's like, and then like Edith and Harold grilling her about the tree and it being stupid and being a horrible party. Like she's trying so hard because she has that dream. Even that dream sequence is super nice. With Bob just saying, I'll just make burgers. And like it's just a cute song. There's a lot of moments in the whole episode's got some great stuff. But for me, I think it's her party because she's just trying so hard to make it work.
You had mentioned it, but like when Bob dresses as a Bleakening to try to like take the heat off everybody and kind of divert attention away, I thought that was a sweet moment. Teddy again in the inflatable suit, seeing Miss Chang, that was tickles my pickle just right. And then the Bleakening song with the kids and kind of like
The Bleakin is coming.
Yeah, the Game of Thrones-esque music video that they do with it. Yeah, that's just wow.
Even Teddy
That's
telling
such a badass scene.
is so good too. He comes around only once in a while though. Like, it's just such a vague folklore to little bad kids who's there when their parents are arguing. It's like it's definitely Teddy. It's totally Teddy's parents.
I had forgot all about the Game of Thrones sequence. That was such a really cool, like, especially, and they make that reference to Wile E. Coyote. I thought only Wile E. Coyote could draw this stuff, So I loved that sequence. And now that you mentioned, it, I was like, that was a really cool. The editing on the show is like second to none. You know what I mean? The cutting and the clipping. We talked about like all facets of it, just plussing it up, but it's just like. It is so tight. These shows are so tight, from the time they say a joke to the cut to the editing to on to the next one. It's just perfect. But that sequence with them walking up to that warehouse with their swords and their shields and everything like that. It was such a cool little, oh man, like a nod, obviously, to the Game of Thrones, but it was just like they're going to war, but it's all up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I
go ahead.
I don't know why it hits me just right, but Tina, when they get to the warehouse and Tina's like, oh, should we call mom and dad? And she kind of like does the sneak call in her pocket. But the fact that she gets those streets wrong, even though she can clearly look at the signs, I don't know why that makes me laugh every time. But it does, because then obviously Linda and Bob follow up and is like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't intersect. Does she mean here? And it's not a funny joke, but for some reason, her getting the streets wrong, even though she's looking at the signs, still makes me laugh. I don't know.
Well, it's like how Linda describes it, because like they see the signs and Bob's like, those streets don't even intersect or work. And literally Linda's like, she's scared, Bob. She's scared. She can't read when she's scared. And they just move on. Or like when Bob's like, it's not that bad of a neighborhood. I'm sure they're fine. And then the dogs are fighting. I'm sure those are just friendly dogs. Like they're just like trying to play.
They're just fighting. They're fighting to the death.
And I do love the part when they're going through the tunnels to get to the rave and Louise divvies up weapons. It's like a ruler, a dolphin pin, and like she gets like the one pokey thing, the pencil. And she's like, well, I mean, I was the only one prepared, so I get the pencil. Everyone else gets whatever I have.
Her slapping the shit out of Bob with that ruler too. He's like, I need a ruler. He's like, let me show you how it works. Goes to hit him again. It's just there's so many moments in here, and like I liken the Belcher family to Voltron, right? Because like at the end of every episode, it's like none of them will let anybody, like you talked about with Family Guy, like everybody was just a tag on Meg. Nobody is a Meg in this family. Like everybody is going to come together and fight off anybody that isn't a Belcher. And I know we're not talking about this episode, but from this most current season, For Whom the Doll Tows, right? When Louise is trying to say sorry You know, that was another evolution of that character. And then you see her like pleading to Tina and Gene without pleading to Tina and Gene, like, no, no, just let me keep going with this. Let me finish. You
Yep.
know, it was that type of moment in this episode as well. It was just like they were all along for the ride. They were all trying to do this for their mom, even though they were saying it was for the presents. The central focus of this was like, nah, man, we got to make this family complete. We got to make this family whole.
Yeah.
And that's like I said, that's another thing that's so great about this show that doesn't compare to other shows. It's just like that family unit is intact at all times.
Because they do it for Bob for Thanksgiving, and like Linda, it's Christmas. It's always Christmas in the tree, and they do a lot for both parents in multiple episodes for either getting a tree or fixing the tree, or in this episode, finding the tree and the ornaments that she misses. And they do the same thing for Bob with the turkey and like, let's do this, make sure we're back in time. So they always try to make it work. They actually care about their parents.
Yes.
And not for nothing, but like Bob does the same for the kids, like on Halloween, where the episode where he's handing out candy and he's got the shitty candy, but he's like, oh no, I actually hid the good stuff, and here you guys can have
you guys,
it because he knew how much it meant to them. So,
or Linda takes them trick or treating just to make sure that they're safe, or like makes their costumes for them in Fortnite. Like they do a lot for the kids, especially during the holidays. They care about too.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I had talked to I can't remember, maybe it was Scott. He was a background designer for the last few seasons. Well, he's been on there for quite some time now. But he had talked about was it Shish Kebab?
Oh,
Was that the one where he drove the cab for Tina? Okay, yeah. I have a horrible memory when it comes to names. I can tell you plot lines and all that other shit. When it comes to title names, I'm horrible at it. You know, but I brought it up and I was like, that's like the whole focal point of the show. Like, you know, we had talked about Bluey and how Bluey is such a horrible standard for a dad to have. Like all of these ladies talk about Instagram models. Like, no, fuck that, dude. You can work out as much. Nobody's gonna be like Bandit, the dad. That's like the greatest dad of all time when it comes to animation or anything.
Yep.
That's an unacceptable standard for most men. You know what I mean? But you got Bob's, and he shows that, and it's just like the shish kebab episode. Like he'll do anything for these fucking kids. It was the same thing when he had to climb up the amp. You know, the first thing he says, he's like, "Well, that's pretty high." He's like, "Well, we'll put the kids down at the bottom, so just in case you fall, you won't die." You know what I mean?
So. Yeah, no, he reluctantly does those stuff, but at the end of the day, he's not gonna put out for his kids. Even though I've made an argument here or two about how he's a bad businessman and a bad father. And those go one and the same, but 99.99% of the time he's going to bad. So I credit where credit's due.
Especially even like noticing Bob's past, where he's just like, my dad never gave me a day off, never let me do anything. He fires the kids, trying to give them the childhood he didn't have. And it's like, even that episode in itself has so many good moments where like the doctor, like Mr. Doglovich, and Gene breaks the soap dog, and it's just like, what is this weird feeling I'm feeling? Like sadness? Or like, they're all like, oh my god. And like Bob's like, Lynn, I had a bad childhood. And he's like, yeah, people who walk like you, they have bad childhoods. Like, walk funny? Like, yeah.
Nobody that stands like that had a bad childhood.
Yeah. It's just like, oh god.
Yeah, I'm noticing my posture more and more now that I remember. I know.
People that had good childhoods don't stand like that. Yeah, it's such a good line. But like he tries so hard to just do better than what he got. And Linda's the same way. She like knows her parents well enough to be like, we got to do at least a little better than them.
Yeah. I think that's the goal for every parent. I mean, they take something that is so, man, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, yellow, red, blue, green, purple. It doesn't matter where you come from, male or female. It's like we can all, you know, have some kind of understanding as they're coming to the same table. Like we all had similar childhoods, essentially. We all kind of had that weird parent, probably. Some of us maybe had both great parents, and one of us had bad parents. You know what I mean? One probably wasn't there. You know, so they take all of these excuse me, these tropes that like almost everybody goes through, and they do such a great way of bringing it down to a level and explaining and not talking at you but talking to you, and then showing you how ways that like maybe it should have happened, or maybe things that, you know, went one way that should have went another way. You know what I mean? So it's like that's one thing that I think is so strong about that writer's room, is they just take something that is just every day and then they put it front and center and they make a joke about it, you know?
There's a couple episodes I can even think of, they just do that. Like there's one where Bob's doing dishes and Linda, I can't remember the name of the episode, but she walks in and something's going on with the kids, and she's like, am I messing up, Bob? Are we doing okay? And he's like, you mean the way you're doing dishes. He's like, I mean, they're not great. And she's like, no, like the kids. He's like, I mean, we're doing the best we can, Lynn. He's like, it's okay. They're good kids. We're doing okay. And there's so many other moments, like when Gene does the VR one and he spends all his money, and Bob's like, Gene, I really feel bad. Like, I wanted you to have a good experience. I don't want you to feel bad about this. And he's like, but I can't fix this. He's like, unfortunately, this is a life thing. Like, sometimes stuff doesn't work out. And you're like, they take a moment, like, they're probably as parents for the writer's room, they're like, this is something, a way for me to explain something to my kids that even I had a hard time probably explaining to them in real life, but I can do this with these characters and teach lessons that way, because they do such a good job with it.
That they do. You know, as we start to wind down here, man, I always like whenever I do podcast collabs. Thank you guys for joining me, man, because I really had a lot of fun with this one.
No,
thank you, Brad. This is only our second podcast we've done, so this is awesome.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
Only second.
Yeah.
You guys are really good at you know, because I do it solo with one guest. Sometimes, like I've had as much as like 9 people on one, and don't. It was fun, but don't. It is so fucking hard.
We did it with Over the Garden Wall. We did a 10-year anniversary panel, and it was like trying to
so fun, but
wrangle fucking sheep, man. It was hard.
Dude, it's like I did one for the Courage the Cowardly Dog back in October, and I had everybody in between from every facet of that show, and I'm just sitting there as soon before we even hit record, the first thing I go is, and I'm glad my mic was muted, but I go, oh fuck. This is this is going to be a challenge, you know, because you want to have everybody shine, and that's you know, tying it back to Bob's, like they make every character shine, but it's like that's so difficult, right? Having every person shine, not talking over, and you know, the whole point of saying that is like you guys do really well. So the fact that this is only like 2 episodes you guys have done so far, you know, you guys are already well far in advance for most people that have a duo show.
Oh well, let me. I misspoke.
Correct.
So this is the second time we've ever been a guest on a podcast.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's travesty. You guys should be on the show more often.
That's what I'm saying.
We've been trying.
Well, I tell
Nobody
you
wants
what,
to
man.
talk to us.
Have they? I know they were in production for the last episode of Bob's for this season before all the fires took place. Have they played the last episode so far, or is that still? Has it been pushed?
As far as we know, we're expecting them back maybe April.
Okay.
Because right now, Animation Domination has a problem of too many cooks in the kitchen. They got like 9 shows, 4 slots.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it all work. They got to get the show to wrap up so they can move in another one and do their like summer, spring lineup with like this like winter lineup that's finishing out their seasons, because they have like half a season done and they just got to come in and finish their next 11 or 12 episodes. So it's going to be a weird couple months.
And as far as we know, it was a full order of episodes.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not all those episodes air, that's not on them. They make the episodes. Fox decides when it goes out.
Yeah.
But we're thinking like April, much like last season.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that being said, the reason I bring that up is, how about you guys come back on and we can do a season wrap up for the end of this season, and we can talk more.
Definitely,
yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes.
Because like I had a lot of fun, and then I've got a couple friends that do some podcasting, so I'll link you guys up with them too. One in particular, you know, he's one of those guys that he's got that brain that he could fucking tell you what he watched 30 years when it comes to animation. The guy's got a steel trap. His name is Brandon Jones on the Animation Destination. Fantastic podcast, but he's just one of those guys that can fucking. One of the most brilliant people I've ever talked to when it comes to animation, but I'll link you up with him. I don't know if he's doing guests just yet. He's been doing podcasting for like 10 years now or whatever on Animation or Animation Destination. So he'd be a great person to talk to. But like I said, I'll make that connection. But we'll have you on like right when the season wraps up, and then we'll talk about our favorite episodes from this most current season, and we'll just kick it again, man.
Anytime you want, anytime.
Yeah, anytime.
Beautiful. You know, so as we're winding down here, man, I like doing this at the end. You know, so what we'll do is, you know, if you guys had a Mount Rushmore of episodes, you know, so you get 4 plus an honorable mention. I would love to know. So let's start with you.
Such a fucking JB rule honorable mention.
It's just a way for me to talk about 5.
Okay, fine.
Weasel out of 5, and you can get 10.
Yeah.
Are we counting 2-parters as 1 episode?
Sure. Yeah, let's go 2 parters as 1.
All right, JB, do you have yours?
Let's see, 5. I could probably pick my 5. I could probably get there.
Yeah.
And in no particular order. You don't have to rank them.
Okay, no particular order. That helps too. Okay, so definitely for me, Crawl Space will be on that list.
Great.
The Haunting for Halloween, that'll be on that one. The Wharf Horse one, I love that. I love those two together. I'll probably go with the Bleakening, and then I still like Amelia. For me, that one's still great, and the way that it does stop motion is so cool because it's like almost like a history of animation, and you're watching it on an animated show. It's super cool.
Right, well, as to not double down on 90% of what JB said, I got to pick new episodes. But easily, number one is Bob Day Afternoon. It's probably my
so
favorite
good.
episode. It's so good. We get Bosco for the first time. Luis
Mickey.
yelling, "That's my dad talking to my dad." That's on there. God damn it, JB. I mean, it is what it is.
Do you want to take one of mine? And I'll pick another one.
No. You said what you said.
I don't
you
need
said
your
what you
charity.
said. Yeah, fuck you. You said what you said.
I'm 40. I don't need this.
Okay, yeah. Bob Day Afternoon. I'm right now. I'm really digging The Plight Before Christmas. That's in there. Another episode. Amazing Rudy, I really love. That's got to be up there. Fuck you, JB. The Bleakening. And there's so many. There's almost 300 episodes. And then Glued, Where's My Bob?
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, well, you should have picked it.
And you could have had The Haunting.
And there's only 4 faces on Mount Rushmore, so there's no honorable mentions in Mike's court. So there you go.
Who hurt you on the Mount Rushmore?
Motherfucker. This guy. And Lincoln, I guess. He's on Mount Rushmore, right?
Yeah.
Washington. We'll go Washington because I know for a fact he's on there. Washington.
All right, so we talked Mount Rushmore of episodes. If you guys had your 2 favorite lines, so that way you couldn't just narrow it down to one, is there 2 lines throughout this entire series that you go, holy shit, that is brilliant, holy shit, that made me laugh?
Ooh.
Boy.
I mean, we brought up one during
Jeopardy.
Jeopardy. The one that I always go to is usually Teddy has some great ones. The one with either the yellow Cordas, and she's becoming a woman, Bob, and he's just like, I want to pay my bill. You're a pervert. No, I'm not a pervert. That one's great. I quote that one a lot.
Actually,
yeah.
Can I say one before JB almost takes mine?
Steals it? Sure, by all means.
Yeah. When
Please.
Teddy's driving in his truck and he's singing to himself, and then we zoom in and he goes, "Oh, I wish my radio worked." That
one's good too.
There you go.
Oh, what's another good one? You brought up the Louise and Bob Day Afternoon, which is like, that's my dad. The Ghost Dad bit is great from Crawl Space. Which is like, are you dad from Ghost Dad? Like, no, I'm Louise's dad. Like, that's a dumb question. You're a dumb kid. It's like, that's good. The one we brought up, the Linda one too, which is like, people who had good childhoods don't stand like that. Like, there's some good moments. It's just hard to nail those down.
There is, man, and it's like whenever I think about this, there's 2 in particular. It's I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's where Gene dresses up like Bob, and he's chasing Bob, and he's like, Bob. Stop following me, but in front.
Yes,
you've got that one, and then from Beef Squatch, they yell, Bob, come out here, and he comes out with a towel. And then they're talking about the celebrity chef. He's like, oh, I don't really want to be a celebrity chef. He's like, oh, celebrity chef, I'm Rachel Ray over here. Yeah, but with bigger hips.
Yeah, with bigger hips.
Yeah, those 2 lines, like, they get me laughing so hard every time.
And I'll give one honorable mention since JB was allowed to give 15 of them.
Oh, so fuck a five Mount Rushmore honorable mention.
Yeah,
huh?
Yeah, that's too many fucking presidents. I'm not doing that. When the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
He's like, it's Salman Rushdie. He's like, it wasn't Salman Rushdie. No, it's Salman Rushdie. I just checked. That makes me giggle every time too.
So, and then this is always a fun one. When you think of Bob's, man, is there one word, one phrase, one sentence that you could say that makes you feel better? The first word that comes to mind whenever you think about Bob's?
Oy, oy, oy.
Philosophical shit.
Oh my God. This is too deep for a Wednesday. This
Uh,
the weeds finally kicking in. That's why we're getting these questions at the end.
Oh,
Um. Okay. A
my
single
eyes have been getting
sentence.
closer and closer as this
Yeah.
episode has progressed.
Sorry, you're starting to look more like me. I'm Filipino.
I do love
Um.
me some Filipino food, man.
Don't we all? Don't we all? We all love a good
It
lumpia.
was never a command function unless you had the lumpia, the pancit, the
God
adobo,
damn
and
right.
I don't know the name of it, but it was the dessert lumpia with the overripe banana. I can never remember
Oh,
the name of that one, but we always got that one from Jollibee.
I I can picture it, but for the life of me, I cannot remember it. Jollibee's a fucking banger, dude. A sentence to describe Bob's or what it makes me think. Huh. Overdone and dry.
Hmm. Okay.
It's not a statement on the show itself, but when I think of Bob's, that's what comes to my mind.
A dry burger.
Overdone and dry. Overdone and dry. Or no. When Bob says the lettuce ketchup burger with lettuce and ketchup, that makes me laugh because I've convinced myself that it was a shout out to me.
Yeah.
In my old podcast, I was like, "Fuck yeah!"
He's very vain. There's that.
Very
he thinks he was also in the movie because there's a guy with a tattoo with 3 stars. He's like, "That's me. That's me." So yeah, he thinks it's him, and he's like, "No one will confirm it, but I can confirm that it was me."
When you're as close to death as I am, you got to start taking stock in all these things that you love and see yourself in them. And when you get to 40, you'll understand.
I invented the meat saya. I am Bob's Burgers. Yeah. I think if I had to pick a line, I think it's gonna be when Bob is doing the Roman Bob a day, where he's like off for the day and he just sings a song like "Nothing Makes Me Happier Than Them." I think that's just a huge metaphor for this show. Like if we could just actually, as a group of people, see what Bob's is about, and it's just like a family that actually loves and cares about each other, and at the end of the day, they accept everybody. Things would be kind of nice if we lived in that world too.
Wow.
That'd
Okay.
absolutely.
I said fucking overdone and dry, and you gave a real answer.
I'm the half
Oh,
full
boys.
dude. You're the half empty. Overdone and dry. I'm 40. Fuck off.
Fucking honorable mention, dude, over here. All right.
Where's my fucking
Wait.
smokes?
Well, boys, like I said, this is a lot of fun, man. I can't wait to do it again. Now, where can the folks go and find you if they're not too familiar with you guys? Where can they find you at on the old social medias and the interwebs, if you will?
Instagram, we're at North To Wharf. On Twitter, it's still Twitter. I'm not changing the way I speak.
Nope,
That's also
we're old.
at North To Wharf. If you're on Blue Sky, just search North To Wharf. Essentially, just search North To Wharf anywhere. You're going to find us. Yeah. And we have a YouTube channel that nobody subscribes to, unlike yours, which is very impressive, by the way. I was going to pick your brain on that one. But we have a YouTube
dude,
channel,
it's all fucking luck, dude. That's all it is. We can talk about it as soon as we get off of here, man. I'll give you everything I've done. I tell everybody how it is. Nonetheless, man, he's been Michael. That's been JB. I've been Julian. It's been the Cartoon Chronicles podcast, and this has been another piece of your childhood. Good night.